You're clicking.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Talking Chickens number 43, M&M Exhibition Poultry. Mike and Matt here with our friend Gary Rossman from the rather snowy and cold state of Wisconsin. Gary's an APA, ABA judge and master breeder. He's been in it a long time, so since it's absolutely miserable out, we figured this would be a good day to have a podcast and do a little talking. So I know I've been under the weather all week. Today I feel pretty good, and of course I don't know. There was at one time the wind chill factor was 9 below, so yeah, it hasn't done me much good. This should have been the day that I was just laying around in bed, not the other 3 days. So, Matt, how are we going? You got any updates?
I think we did the updates when we had um, Don Karasik on last week. So Caitlin has the new dosage for Taurus, and I think that's about all I got. I corrected Eagle's Nest. No, I didn't. It didn't take it. I'll fix that later. But Eagle's Nest booming over there. Dustin's going big to town. He got the incubators moved from the hatchery he bought them from yesterday, and then I think next weekend he's moving the other hatchery incubators he bought, and then he's going to get the hatcher set in. So he's got a lot of work to get done. I think you're going next weekend to set up breeding pens for some of the exhibition birds and get them moved around. And I think he's got the waterfowl in. Is that what I got today?
I don't know. I didn't understand that last text, whether he's got it in or that's what they're getting done. I know they're hooking those incubators up and getting those around, and the hatches will be coming in a week or two. You got to start the damn incubators first. So I know he's doing that. Next week we're gonna go over. Terry will do some videoing, and
that's Terry.
We will work on.
I said Terry Britt.
Terry Britt will be there also, and he'll be helping on the exhibition birds, and we'll get all that straightened around. And I know the waterfowl pens I think are going in this week. The exhibition bird is done, and the waterfowl, so that means everything will have to be bedded and get all that down. And on that note, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Rozier Poultry Supplies. Matt Urich, if you're listening to this and you text me the other day about asking about dipping in perithrin, or however you say that, you can go to Rozier's and order the Taurus. Caitlin has the correct dosage for you. Also, Eagle Nest Hatchery, our sponsor, and our affiliate is Hatching Time Products. If you need anything, it's getting that time of year. Use our is that the code up in the corner there, Maddie?
Yeah, that's the code. It's on the Facebook page. I think I've got it tagged several areas.
And it's on YouTube in the description. There's that. We appreciate that. That really helps the channel.
We have sold a bunch of incubators the last couple of weeks, and some. I had a waterfowl guy up in Michigan that hatches production Toulouse for the table market, and he switched a big incubator to big hatcher, and they come in and he's got them set up and excited to get going. So he'll report back. I do want to hear from the people that have bought the little incubator, see how they're doing with those. I know Kelly Sheese and a few others have got those because we're looking for something less expensive for people to start out with. And I think that's a good selection. And I kind of like to hear how they're doing with them. So
yeah,
I think that's it.
I think Kelly got hers first. So when you get that thing set up, darling, go ahead and
with Dustin,
I said, so we know.
With Dustin and Eagle Nest Hatchery, I set his accounting program up last week, so he's actually taking orders. And those that want exhibition birds, I suggest getting them in because they're going to be a limited number, and we're not going to have like unlimited amounts of those. The production birds we're not worried about, but exhibition birds will be, they're going to have to schedule them out to when they produce, when they're fertile, and when we got enough eggs to complete an order. So those will be a little trickier than the commercial type birds, but he's got a lot of nice birds there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what pops out.
Yeah, me too. The lights are going on there on December the 25th. So that's Christmas. That's when the lights go on. So that means we have to have everything in, and so they should be in there a week or so, hopefully, and they'll be used to their new feeders and waters and
For
what
those
have.
that complain about feed bills, I know we ordered 27 tons of feed when we were there after Knoxville. So I'm not complaining about my feed bill no more, because I don't
No.
even want to think what that's going to take. And he says it's going to be bad because you got to fill all those feeders up in probably over 100 breeding pens. So it's a nice setup. Mike gets the videos up. You'll be quite impressed. I've been to a lot of hatcheries in my day, and I haven't seen anyone any nicer than what this is going to be. So he's, I guess all those years of experience and hanging around has let him design it the way he wants it. And by God, he did. So quite an impressive facility.
Yep, I agree. All right, without further ado, Gary, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. It is cold here. Like I said, we had 8 below this morning with a wind chill of probably 25 below. Went out to do chores this morning. Everything was frozen. Way too early for that, but it is what it is, I guess. So.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Give us a little rundown, Gary. Tell us how you got started and kind of give us a timeline. Fill us in.
All right. Well, basically, I started as a 4-H kid. I was 9 years old, and I grew up right next to a dairy farm. And when I got into 4-H, I wanted to show a steer, a cow. And my mom said, "No, you can't do that, but you can show chickens." So it's like, okay, I'll do chickens. I had no 4-H leader. Basically, I just got my birds from Murray McMurray, over 50 years ago.
Yep.
Had no idea what I was doing. Would bring my birds to the county fair every year, get my pink ribbon every year. And probably because I just didn't, obviously I didn't know what I was doing. I probably had the birds entered in the wrong class, or there was DQs or defects that I had no idea, back then. And it was probably the 3rd year in 4-H. Harry Hallback always judged our county fair because, in Wisconsin, it was the Racine County Fair. He was 10 minutes from the Racine County Fair. And so finally that 3rd year, probably, because I was thinking about this, he finally said, "Okay, kid, I'm going to help you out," because every year, he gave me a pink ribbon every year. So I started getting my birds from him. He'd go over to the farm in the January, February, and get the birds from him, and obviously did a lot better than that. So basically, that was my first mentor, really, in the hobby. But still,
That's a good one.
Yeah, that was. But yeah, he was my first mentor, and but still, I didn't know anything about state fair. I didn't know anything about any other shows. It was for my, growing up, it was the county fair, and that was it. It was all done. So I did that until I, aged out of 4-H and pretty much got rid of my birds because I was, it's getting them from Harry then. But, you go on to college, so you're doing some other things, and got out of the birds. And it wasn't until Julie and I got married in the early 90s, 92. We bought her grandparents' farm. And I had all these buildings. I had a barn. I had some other, I had a pig farrowing house. It's like, shoot, I can get back into this. And she had no idea. She had no idea of my, I guess, what I call, I always say this is a sickness, this hobby is but no, I got back into it. And at that time, I decided that I wanted to give back. And so I became the 4-H leader of Racine County. And I also at that time became the poultry superintendent at the Racine County Fair. So I've been doing that for 30 it's been 31 years now as a 4-H leader and a poultry superintendent. So in the early beginning, I actually, another person that I worked with very closely was Barb Gramacki. And so she's the one that really introduced me then to State Fair. I worked a couple of years at the State Fair, and then all these other shows that I wasn't even aware of. And so my first, back in the early 80s or early 90s, after I got back into it, my first breed was black Australorps. And I still show those today, black Australorps. That was my first breed. And I pretty much just stuck with that for a while. And then when the boys, I got 3 boys, and when they started getting into 4-H, actually back then too, I had Colombians. So in probably the early 2000s, I got my first start from Ed Hayes out east. If I'm saying his name right, Ed Hayes, right? Delaware, Massachusetts, or is it Ed Halls?
I think it's Hawes.
It's probably Robert Halls.
Yeah, that's
Bob
it.
Halls. Bob Halls is a great judge, old time buff coaching Colombian color pattern breeder. Yep, Bob Halls, good friend.
So that was my first start. He sent me probably a couple dozen eggs back then in probably around 2000, early 2000s, and I showed those for a number of years. And then when my boys started getting into 4-H, I always encourage them to show what you want to show. Don't show what dad is showing. So they did. I said the Australorps stay though. They have to stay. So they showed the Australorps, but they got into other bantams. They got into waterfowl, geese. We did some call ducks. I mean, every boy had their own interest. Like my middle son, his favorite was light brown leghorn bantams. Plus he showed cayugas and pecans, and I mean, you name it, we probably had every duck. But in order to have all that space, I needed to get rid of something. So at that time, I got rid of the Colombians. So after the 2 older boys aged out, which then created some space for me, I got back in the Colombians. Matt was still showing. That's the youngest. That's probably the one you've seen with me, out in Ohio. But he was still showing, but it still gave me some room to get back in the Colombians. So with the help of, I actually reached out to Gail Lair number of years ago. I think I got a trio from him. Got some hatching eggs from Grant Tenley. I think I got another trio from Dale Anderson out in California. And so I kept those lines true for a couple of years, and then I started crossing. But just to back up a little bit, so I wanted to get back to the hobby as far as a 4-H leader. So that's why I'm still doing this at 31 years. So it's amazing how many kids, like Ashley Shaw, I've helped her. I actually had her dad, Brian, in the project, when I was the 4-H leader. I think he was 16 at the time when I had him. But it's just something to give back because, basically when I was a kid, I knew nothing. And, with the help of Harry, that's basically what he kept me in the hobby. If I didn't have that, I would not be in the hobby today, right. Most likely. So,
well, he kept a bunch of us in it.
Yeah. And at that time, I never knew Jeff. I never saw Jeff. I think he was gone, on the farm at the time. So I didn't meet Jeff until when I, got back into it in the 90s is when I met Jeff. But no, I wanted to get back to the kids. We have a good I got kids. I had kids back in the '90s that are now parents today that are in the project. Today. So it does. They come back around like every year, and it takes me a minute to recognize them because everyone changes.
I got scared when they brought their grandkids back. And that's when I thought, I've been doing this way too long.
Yeah, that's about where I'm getting now. I got, I think I got a few that have their kids now. So but I enjoy it. It's a passion for me now. So just see how long. And, we always bring, I'm proud of this, but Wisconsin should be proud of this too, because we have some good leaders in Wisconsin, at the club level, at the county fair level, that we really have a good turnout at Ohio. Because I tell them, that's the show to go to, of all the poultry shows. And I said, don't be intimidated. You just go. I mean, you guys, Wisconsin always does well there, whether it's showing, being on Champion Row, or showmanship. I've mentored a lot of kids, through Racine County, and a lot of kids out of Racine County. Jefferson County, I've been mentoring the Brotley girls, Hannah and Riley, over the years, and they have done well at Ohio too. So it's nice to see. So hopefully that's our future. That they keep at it.
It's great you say that, because Mike and I have judged the Wisconsin State Fair Junior Show, and I've done a lot of state fairs all across the country, and there's none better. The quality of birds, the quality of kids, and what I always like to see is actually kids interested in the birds, and it's not the parent's second 4-H career. And you definitely have that up there. Everybody that we judged that day was very into it and into their respective breeds, and across all spectrums, big waterfowl, bantam ducks, chickens. Mm-hmm. It was interesting. And the best thing about Wisconsin State Fair was the cream puffs.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, I think I tried it once. I'm not a fan of cream puffs though. It was a lot of, a lot of dairy, I guess. A lot of puff, right?
Well, a lot of sweet,
right.
We have them here in Ohio, but they're not as big as what you have up there. So you guys have like the king of cream puffs.
Yep. But no, I mean, we have a good junior program in Wisconsin. I mean, the Wisconsin International Poultry Show, that's probably 1,500 birds just in the junior show. I mean, we were at,
big show.
I think they're at like 3,800 last year, total birds. So
and it just seems to get bigger and bigger. Probably not a better waterfowl show in the country, I don't think.
Right.
At least with numbers. I mean, gosh, when you walk down and see 25, 30 Sebastians, 100 Rowans, and out of probably that many Cayugas, that many runners, it's always amazed me every time I've been there that considering the climate that they consistently produce, that must be the climate for producing good waterfowl.
Good waterfowl, yeah, it's a good climate here. Yeah,
the call ducks are always. I can't imagine taking care of waterfowl. I can imagine it's a nightmare. In my mind, that waterfowl up there, but they raise it. I mean, they raise a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to lots of places. My favorite place to go visit is Pete Dempsey's. My God,
yeah.
I think if you started feeding at one end, by the time you got done, you'd have to start over again. And Pete and Sherry, I was always amazed at what they do, because that many good waterfowl in one place, it would be here in the red clay, it would be a muddy mess, but they're lucky they got that sand, and it always looks pristine. And I've never seen an operation like that. That's, if you ever get a chance to do Pete's and get some ducks, go do it, because you'll be impressed. And he's also a pigeon guy, so I get to see those when I go there too.
Right. That's where we got all our waterfowl from, our ducks and geese. But you always had to keep an eye on him, because the minute you turned your back on him, he put more ducklings in the box. So you get home, it's like, well, what is all this stuff? And he thought it was funny, but yeah, you always had to watch him. But no, good guy. Treated me and our boys very well. And I I think he's treated all the kids in Wisconsin very well,
Oh, he supplies ducks to the whole United States, and
Right.
and good ducks, so duck and geese. It's always, like I said, I always enjoy going there. It's just an amazing operation.
So getting back, I mean, so in the late 90s when I started showing, on, I guess, the big circuit, I didn't know anybody, you just kind of show up and you start going to these shows. And so I ended up starting to clerk because I wanted something to do, and so I started clerking, and I realized it's like, well, you're kind of judging in your head, but you're not saying anything. And you're kind of starting to agree with the judge. It's like, yeah, I'm picking these things right, as far as how he's picking them. And it's like, that's when I realized I think I can be a judge, So I sat for my APA exam, I think in 2004 is when I think I got my APA license. And then I started judging. And there wasn't much I could do because you're still raising three boys, and you're, with that and sports and, all that. That was our focus, And it wasn't until 2019 is when I finally got my ABA license then. So I finally sat for that. And everybody was encouraging me to do that because you're more marketable, obviously, when you have both licenses. So yeah, I got that in 2019, and the rest is, yeah, I enjoy it. So
Going to that, I think that you said a key thing there. I think when you get both licenses, you have a better perspective. So the majority of birds in the show are going to be bantams anyways. And I kind of did the reverse. I got my ABA first, and then I wasn't going to go any farther. And then everybody's, well, you need to start judging big chickens. We'll hire you more. Well, I don't know that I wanted hired more, but I went and did that, and I took my test at the Michigan State Fair and got into that. And then it was crazy after that, because then they know you can do both, and they don't have to worry about sanctions and things. And then you start doing like what you've probably done. You start judging more than you probably want to, and traveling more. So
right.
It's good because you get to see the whole country, I think, is the best part of it.
And that's the nice thing. I mean, yeah, you're trying to juggle both. You like to show, but you find that you're judging more because you don't want to turn anything down, or you try not to turn anything down. But yeah, I still want to show. That kind of gives me a break from judging, and then just catch up with other people. All the friends you make in the hobby, and some of them you don't see for a whole year. Until that show comes around. So. But yeah, you meet a lot of nice people in this hobby. So
something else that's really neat, doing that as much as we do and going everywhere, is when someone asks you where to find something. I mean, we know breeders that they're not at the big shows as much, whether it be in the South or up your way, that they just don't come to Columbus. They have other things to do. So I think we help a lot of people by saying, hey, get in touch with so-and-so, tell him I sent you. And they end up getting birds that nobody else in their area has. And a lot of times that's a good thing. I mean, for us, look at Old English, Matt, as many places and the colors, say Iowa, just name a weird color. And you think back and you think, oh, I know who raises those. Well, they don't, a lot of the Old English guys, they don't travel as much, and so, but I think we've helped a lot of people because each region of the country seems to have their really strong points. This is going to sound biased, and it probably is, but not everybody has what we have. I mean, between Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, we've got a little, no matter where you show up, there might be somebody there that will kick your butt. I mean, we have a lot of different classes of really good chickens and really good waterfowl. Not all at the same time, a lot of times. But so it kind of helps. And I think when you're exposed as much to judging as we get exposed, which is a good thing, when we go somewhere else to judge, it doesn't take long because everything is a little bit different a lot of places. And to apply that scale with equal benefit to those that, you'll think, I'm going to give you an example, is coachings, because, we raise them and you do a great job at judging them. And it's like, good Lord, look at the size of these things. Or this looks like a mess of feathers. But you still got to pick the best coach, but it gives you an opportunity to talk to the people and say, hey, here's what you should have more shape here. It's just not a blob. Look over, we can do all those things, but you can do that with rocks or anything else, or Wyandottes, and it kind of helps everybody kind of get into the same, what the standard actually says. Not that you're winning, but because you're closest to the standard, but you ain't that close to it either.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it kind of, and I think it helps people to get different opinions and everything. And like we say a million times, if you're relying on the judge to call your birds, you're not going to be in it long. If you brought it and, hey, say it's fifth, and you're in your head, you're thinking, I wouldn't trade that bird for the bird on Champion Row. Well, then good for you. Because that you're breeding to your interpretation of the ideal that the standard lines out, because there's never been a perfect one, and there probably never will be. Look how many years, right? So, but as long as there's an ideal, there's chance for improvement every year, and even incremental small improvements is an improvement. And well, I think that's part of the good thing about it. As much as we judge, as many places we go, and as much as we show, that you can see even other things coming along. They're looking better. They're everything. You get in the rocks with your Colombians, and you're looking down there, and there's all the whites and the bards, and there's a few other colors coming along pretty good now. But your Colombians, they can compete. Even though they're a party colored bird, they can compete type wise with those. So it makes you feel like, yep, I'm on it.
Right.
Now, whether the judge recognizes it or not, I'm on it.
I
think that's the great thing about it.
Yeah. And it's been a long road, and a lot of hard work. And a lot of these, especially maybe the younger ones, or even the ones that are breeding now, they don't stick with it. They give up too easy. If they don't get on Champion Row like right away, then okay, I got to move on to something else. Well, how come I'm not on Champion Row? What am I doing wrong? And this is where they need to start, maybe talking to the judge, or actually talking to breeders, really, or other breeders, the old timers, and just saying, okay, what am I doing wrong? What do I have to do? Do I have to work on type? Do I have to work on color? Do I have to work on both? And it's the same way with the Colombians. When I got back into it, it was 3 different lines I kept true. But in those early years, I was working on type because I didn't have that rock type, so I was focusing on that. And it wasn't until once I got that type down, I have to big shout out to Brian Knox, because he raised those light Brahmas, which has the same color pattern. And so him and I got to talking, and what he told me to do on those Colombians put me over the top, as far as color. And, that's probably something I should share, today with, ones that are breeding that type of pattern, what to look for, because it was just little things that you had to do to get that color. It was amazing, so, but yeah, it's been a long road, but it's the Colombians, the Australorps I have, you just have to worry about type, but the Colombians, it's type and color. And that's what's the challenging thing of it is. And it makes it fun, because every year, you go in there, okay, now what do I, because like you said, Mike, you don't have a perfect bird, so, okay, I'm going to put this pen together because I want to improve this. I want to put this pen together because I want to improve that. So it's always something every year. So, but.
And I think, Gary, on when I've judged your Colombians, which I've had the pleasure to do several times, you show, like Matt and I have said, you have to make the judge work. I mean, I've walked in and you've had 5, 5, 5, 5, or 7, 7, 7, 7. I mean, so you've got the whites, and majority of the time, the whites are winners.
Yep.
You'll have some bards now and then, but on your Colombians, you have to make the judge stop and go, ooh. You don't get through one and there's 2 Colombians. Yeah, well, I got best in reserve. But you got to make the judge in their mind go back and make them use that scale. Are they equal type? Yeah, they're equal type in my mind. All right, so how much is that color? Can I cut that bird for color? And I think that really helps put the Colombians or any other color pattern up. Is you have to stay at it, show enough of them, and just keep going. Keep going.
Right. And that's what, somebody asked me, why do I show so many birds? Because you show a string,
Yep.
and basically it gets back to what Jeff Hallback told me. He goes, you got to show enough birds to make that judge stop and pay attention to them. If I would only show 5, say if I only show 7 birds, that judge is just going to go, oh, okay, and then skim over and keep going. So I tell everybody, I said, especially on color, make the judge stop and pay attention to your birds. I mean, that's what you have to do, I guess. But like you said, Mike, by me showing 25, 30 birds, it's a nice string, and it's a nice, and they're all consistent. Like you said, it's
that's
like
the thing.
The big thing. Yep.
They are consistent.
So
when you get down,
often
Maddie.
for a long time with the rare colors of rocks and the rare colors of Wyandottes, the problem was they were crossing them back and forth.
Yeah.
So they could have a Wyandotte looking rock or a rock looking Wyandotte, and they improved the color, but they never did, like you said, they didn't focus on the type first. And having had Colombian rocks, Colombian Wyandottes, partridge rocks, partridge Wyandottes, that was probably the biggest problem getting them to be looked at, is what you just said. You have to put down enough of them that are consistent, that they have, like you said, that when they walk by, they're going to say, oh boy, I got something to do today. And then you have to go in there and mark them and mark the cards and sort them a little bit. And I think that's definitely, to anybody that raises a rare breed or a rare color, that's the secret. And don't just put 25 of them in there. Make sure there are 25 that look alike and they're very similar.
And to that same point, Matt, not just rare colors, but in our case, the white cochins. Blacks were winning everything everywhere. And the whites never, I mean, they get looked at, but they get passed over. Well, when it was time, after years, and it was time to showing, we would put down 5 cockerels, 5 pullets, 4 cocks, 4 hens. So the judge had to look at those birds, and I'm happy to say that there's always differences, but man, they look a hell of a lot alike.
Yep.
And I think that really helps, no matter the color or the breed. If something is consistently winning, now black Wyandotte Bantams are winning again. Well, the white Wyandotte Bantam breeders, well, most of them, one should make them look like a Wyandotte, not like a Cochin. But anyway, put them down. Put in 4 or 5 cockerels.
Right.
If your pullets are better, put in 7 pullets and 3 cockerels. I mean, make a class where when we come through there, you can't have any predisposition in your head. You got to actually work at what you're doing.
Right. Like this year, my male Colombians were better than my females.
Absolutely.
In my mind. And
Right.
so I showed more males. I showed more cockerels because it's like, oh my God, I can't leave this one home. I can't leave that one home just because I already have 5 entered. It's like, okay, I'm going to show 10, and they all look the same. So, but yeah, it's, so now going into the breeding season, my goal is to improve my female line, so, but yeah, it's always something.
But the goal is, right? So yeah, improve the females to get them back up, but
Right.
maintain the cockerels where they are.
Right. Yep.
And that's what we go through in the white coach and bantams is we've won a boatload in males.
Mm-hmm.
So it's trying to get the pullets up to compete with your own males.
Right.
And then you worry about where they fall in the breed after that. But
Right.
you have to maintain what you got
Right.
and still improve on the other side. And I think that's what makes it fun, Gary. That's because it gives you mind games to play within yourself because
Mm-hmm.
we're judging and critiquing all the time in our own coops. And I think
Right.
you have to do that. It just doesn't come.
Well,
Comes
and
that way, it doesn't stay.
even setting up breeding pens, it doesn't take just an hour. For me, it takes all day. It does. I mean, you're really nitpicking what you want to put together, and then it also is a lot of I keep records. I
Right.
know exactly where these birds came from what pen, from what male, from females. Everything is recorded. So then I can go back the next year and say, okay, he threw this or that pen threw that, and I'll say, okay, I got to maintain that. And so yeah, it's a constant. It's that's the constant challenge, I guess, of breeding.
That's exactly a good point, and I say it often, is that most breeders, when they start out, make way too many matings. You're better off to make less matings and be more focused on that. And that's what I never had a lot of space. I always had to do that.
Right.
Mike will tell you there ain't a wasted bird here. If it's not going to get used, it's gone. So every bird here has a purpose. And like you said, at the end of the year, I look at what I started with and what I produced and did this work? Did I make some progress or do I need to go back to the drawing board? Or what point? With, like he said, with white coaches, it took 14 years before I'd even bring them out because they was so bad when we started. I just wasn't happy with them, and I run my mouth and saying I didn't like the way these white coaches look. They've ruined them. Blah blah blah. Well, he said, "Well, fix them." Well, I didn't realize it was going to take that long, but I think at least we got them the way we want, and they're consistent. And like he says, we'll wish up 7 or 8 cockerels, and very rarely does the one we like ever win. So you never know. That's why you put 7 or 8 of them in there because so they're going to see something that you didn't see, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then fine points, right? Because we're looking at them. I'm going to go to this fall when I judged your birds at Highland, Illinois.
Yeah.
The difference between that first and second place cockerel, I had originally marked them, and I stood there for a minute and I thought, it took me, and I switched it, and I'm glad that I did. But I switched it because I couldn't really cut either one of them much on anything for me. But the one that I put up, he just had that look. And people, if you're a horseman or a cattleman or a dog, this bird, this whatever may look to most people almost exactly the same, but one of them's got something.
Yep.
And you can't always say what that something is, but they just click. That little cockerel I put up, he never stopped showing. I didn't have to do shit. It's 95 degrees, and every time you'd walk down there, he'd give me that strut. He wouldn't drop his wings, but he'd give me that strut. The other male bird, he'd kind of drop, and when he didn't, they looked about alike. But so it's them wee little things.
Right.
When you're showing 7, if you'd have shown 3, well, okay.
Yeah.
One of them wasn't as good as those 2, so it took a little time. But when you show 7 or 8, and damn, you're nitpicking.
Right.
And I like having to nitpick That's what makes our job
Yeah.
fun.
Yep.
You know.
But
so,
he was consistent. I mean, he won 3 shows, 3 different judges. So you guys,
Really?
you're all consistent on that male. And the last show he went to, he pretty much blew out his tail. So he placed fifth, but no, that's a good male. So he very consistent, throughout the fall show on all the judges. They all agreed. So, but
he's little.
yeah, I like. What's that?
He was little
Yeah,
and typey at the same time. Had back
right.
and width, and was still. I mean, there was nothing to get him in and out of the cage. He had it.
Right.
You
And
can't explain it, but
and that's the thing. So, that's, getting those birds down to where they're supposed to be as far as size, that's taken a number of years, because what I had to work with, I knew they were too big. It's like, okay, I got to get these things down. And so, yeah, this was the year. It was a pretty good year for the Columbians. So,
yes, it was. Yeah. And that getting size down in Bantams, it's funny. I've had this conversation with bukus of people, more towards coachings. And I said, well, the funny thing is that the big coachings, their natural thing is to get smaller. And the Bantam coachings, their natural thing is to get bigger.
Big, yeah.
So it's working, and it's keeping that type on both ends of the spectrum, large fowl and Bantam, keeping that type, but either getting them bigger with that type or smaller with that type.
Right.
And again, it goes like everything else, but that's the challenge. That's seeing if you're a mad scientist when you get in there.
Oh yeah. Right.
And it makes you feel good. And I'll say this for this year, I was very disappointed in our male birds. Didn't raise many, only raised 18 birds total. And I kept telling Matt that they're not worse, but they're not bad. And the pullets, I thought, were pretty good. Well, you handled those.
Yeah. Yep.
They're pretty good, and they are pretty good. And then all of a sudden, one cockerel, who was the meanest little asshole we had, and I almost killed a dozen times, never was in feather, never had his wings in. And going to this Knoxville show, I had entered 2 and I had 1, and he was kind of okay. And I looked down and I thought, well, let's see how he was in. Well, he
was
won.
in. Yep.
But I mean, it's that you never really know. And usually our birds, you could tell right away where they're going to have it or not. I don't know what it was with this year, but I was breeding for females. So I did that. And thankfully got 1, possibly 2 males that really are the same quality wise. I don't know if they're much better, but they're the same. So I held, and we brought up at the same time on the other side. And that's a bitch. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
But like Matt said, after 14 or 16 or ever how many years we've had these things, you finally get where you can do that adjusting. Now, there's a lot of time when people just start out, you can't start adjusting right away.
No.
Work to your strength. Get your strength built in, and then you can start, because you got to maintain and bring up whatever males or females. Matt's black wine, that's when he had them. The males totally dominated.
Yeah.
And it took trying to maintain that male, and then when he got out of him and I got him to bring the female line up, and then I totally flipped it. The female line was great, and the males were okay. I mean, so I didn't maintain, but I mean, that's always the goal.
It's a different focus. I see that quite often.
Yep.
It's a different focus. So you tend to focus more on females. I tend to focus more on male birds. So whatever. And that's the difference when 2 people having them and 2 different exhibitors. You're going to have your strengths and your weaknesses, and you're going to kind of lean one way or the other. It's very difficult to produce good quality birds of both sexes in anything. I will say that from raising a zillion different varieties and breeds and colors. When you get them both on both sides, you better hang on and go for the ride, because it doesn't happen very often. Usually one's always better than the other.
Right. And this gets back to with exhibitors or breeders just giving up way too early,
Yes.
where they don't want to put that work into, okay, I got to improve my female line, or I got to improve my male line. And they just give up way too early, and then they move on to something else. And it's just, then they start all over again. And then that doesn't work for them. So like I tell my 4-H kids, the ones that are actually the ones that have the interest and want to go on to that next level, I said, pick a breed. Just focus on a breed, maybe 2 if you want to be in large fowl and bantams, but focus on that breed and work with that breed, the breed that you like. It's the goal is not to raise all these birds and be in every class, because that's not going to accomplish anything. Pick something that you enjoy raising and work on it, fix it, then you're going to have success, so.
Yeah, I call it Noah's Ark syndrome. So you got to have 2 of everything. And we all do that when we start. And what I'll tell everybody, and I did it myself, is you will never make any progress when you have too much stuff going on.
That's
Even
right.
at one time, I think I had 8 colors of Wyandottes, and I told him, I got too much here.
Mhm.
You can't focus on what you really need to focus on, because you're trying to fix 10 things. And I think that's the biggest thing with people starting out. Start with 1 or 2 varieties, like you say, maybe a large fowl and a bantam, and get that down.
Right.
And once you get some success with that, you can move on to some of the more exotic colors and some of the tougher colors to raise. But if you can't get the whites and the bards for rocks, for example, if you can't get them down, you're never going to make partridge and Colombian any good, or silver laced or whatever. You got to get that down. Then you can move on to those colors.
Yeah.
And remember, you have to maintain what you've got good while you're working on whatever other color. And there are no quick fixes that stay. Now, you may have a year that quick fix worked, and the next year you're below where you were when you started.
Right. Yeah,
just because you seem to get that in there.
Yeah, just because you think you're on the top, you had a good year showing, that doesn't mean nothing. Next year, like you said, Mike, next year is going to be totally different.
It's way harder to stay there than it is to get there, in my opinion. Right. And having done it with several things over the years. I go back to making too many matings. Number one, what you said, not keeping good records. So not knowing what you produced where, that's the biggest mistake most of them make. And if you've got a good mating, then you can repeat that next year.
Yep.
And you can fine tune a little bit. But if you got one and I've had them where I have raised stuff that looks awful out of some pretty good stuff that have produced before, you just got to keep fine tuning that. But don't make so many matings that you can't keep track of it.
Right.
Because then you're not doing yourself any good.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. So
I think Dan Castle, when he was on here, he's probably maybe way over the edge for records, but it's never going to hurt him. And one thing I like about ABA leg bands, and I've talked a lot of people into those, is I can look at every bird out there and I can tell you where it come from and what year it was hatched, and what I was trying to do that year, and that helps me identify them without having to go run them down. And I think that's a great system as well. You got to have some way to mark them to where when I ask you about a bird, you should be telling me how his parents were, what they did, what I was trying to fix. And when you talk about working with kids, that's the kids that really impress me are the ones that are doing that. And there's not a lot of them, but there's a few of them out there that have, at a young age, have got that. Nate Cawthorn's one of my favorites, and Ashley's another one. They got more knowledge and experience at a young age than we ever had. I mean, it took us 50 years to that point. So hopefully we're getting them, like we tell you, I'm starting at third base. We're getting them kids farther along, though. When they get to be older, they're going to be tough, I think.
Right. I know Dan's in that technology. My records is just a notepad, and I write everything down. So, I mean, that's how I do it. So, but I don't have the color graphs like Dan does.
Regardless of what you use to do it,
right.
What you've got going on. And
absolutely.
I can tell right away with a breeder whether they know what they're doing or whether they're not, because of how they manage their birds and keep their records. That's probably one of the most overlooked things in the hobby. I think we don't probably focus on that enough.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to give up their secrets. It's not rocket science. It's just keeping track of what you're doing and documenting it.
Well, and it's just like the Brotley girls, you know, Hannah and Riley, they were just raising birds until I told them, I said, you got to start wing banding these chicks that you got coming out, because you need to know where they're coming from, you know? And I think once they started doing that, they're having better results. I know, you know, Hannah did really well a few years back at Ohio, and she did well this year, you know? So, and it's just that little thing, putting a wing band, you know, so you know what pen they came out of. So you can trace that back and say, okay, it came out of that pen through good males, that pen through good females, you know. That's when you start to have success.
When you say that, because I've talked to Brian, and I know Brian a long time, and I always laughed when he would have a Brahma that would lose its wing band. It was gone because he didn't know where it come from and he wasn't having it. So you're very right there. You have to know exactly where that bird come from.
Right. Yep. So.
All right, let's go to the Colombian pattern. So this is a tough one. I think the biggest fault, and I will say with having to raise Colombians, I thought we lost him there. He dropped out. You got to have that hackle and saddle striping. And that's where I see, even in Brahmas anymore, especially big ones, they've lost that striping, and that striping gives you everything. If you don't have that, you're not going to get it back, and you have to breed yourself out of that corner.
Right. So, yeah, I was working on just type in the beginning to get the type down. And then I noticed in my birds too, they were dull, you know, because right now I put the birds on Champion Row and everyone pops, you know. It's like, oh my God, the color, you know, the black and white.
Striking contrast. Yeah.
Everyone pops. And so talking to Brian Knox about it, again, it was just little things that he pointed out. So on the saddle feathers, you're going to see the black striping, you know, on the saddle feather. He pointed out on some of my birds that half of it was black and half of it was white, or half of it was black and half of it was gray. He says if you breed those birds with that defect, you know, on the striping, your bird's going to end up getting lighter and lighter. So the other thing too is on the hackle feathers. You want that black hackle feather to go all the way down to the skin. So you need to start selecting, you know, birds that have that black feather going all the way down to the skin, and then you want to select the males, especially that have that those saddle feathers that are nice and black on both sides. Once I started doing that, started selecting for that, because I had a lot of birds to pick from, you know, that put me over the top right then and there, you know, just doing that. So just paying attention to those two simple things now has given me that striking contrast, that black and white contrast.
I see so many people focus on wing color, but if you do what you just said, you don't have to worry about wing color. It'll be there.
Don't have to worry about wing color. So when you do that, you don't have to. But so my calling process though is looking for the saddle feathers, but I don't breed any Colombian bird that has white bleeding into the primary on the black side. I just don't do it. Now that's just my opinion. That's how I do it. But I just feel if I select a bird or use that bird, because normally when I look at that wing color and I got that white bleeding into the black, then I look at the undercolor and the undercolor is white.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, that bird's gone. So
they knew what they were doing when they made them, because all those things you talked about all tie together. So that good solid black striping all the way to the skin and the hackle and saddle is going to fix a lot of those other problems. But if you accept that white bleeding over because that's all you got, or you just like its type better, you're going to be fighting that problem for a long time. So now there's a pen maybe I'll put together that have the females will have the black kind of bleeding into the skull, you know, because you want that nice white skull.
but you also want to maintain that black undercolor. So, so I'll always put a pen together with two females, three females that have that black leading into the skull, just to see what I'm going to get. So basically, again, keeping your records, it's like, okay, yeah, they threw nice undercolor by doing that. So I always keep just one pen, but my main focus is on the wing color, the saddle color, and then that color the hackle color going all the way down to the skin. Those are it's not rocket science.
Those that wanted Colombian tips, that's golden right there, folks, because I come from a time where they would share that. I got a few partridge tricks the same way. With partridges the same way. In the old days, that wasn't real common knowledge, so they wanted you to struggle so then they could beat you. Now we're pretty much a little more laid back, and we try to tell you everything, and hopefully that you'll learn from that. But that's golden what you just told them.
Yeah, and when I was down at Louisiana State Fair, there was some exhibitor that had Colombians down there, and I pulled the exhibitor aside, and because they had really no color in the saddle on the males, and the females, they were white undercolor. Everything was wrong. Everything was wrong on them. And so I told them, I said, this is what you got to, if you have something like this at home that I was telling them about, the black in the saddles, the nice hackle color, use them. Okay. But judging, I'm starting to see Colombians. And even at Ohio, I didn't judge them, but I did look at the Colombians in Ohio. And just looking at them from the outside cage, you could see the faults on that bird because they didn't have that nice black crisp saddle feathers, and they were dull. They were dull. So
and what you do then, the main tail feathers.
Yeah.
Yours have the same green iridescence that a good black chicken has.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that, then they become gray.
Right.
And like you said, they don't pop. It's not, I mean, it's okay, but it doesn't please you. It doesn't make you stop and look. And that color, and that's the same thing in, the correlation is pretty close in partridge or silver penciled. When you've got that black tail feather and they shine, that means that on them, the penciling has iridescence to it. The lacing has iridescence to it on a silver lace. But you can see all that. And you don't know half the time anymore if you've never seen the correct color.
Right.
You're happy with that dull gray shit. And that is not correct.
Well, it's just like on the Australorps. You see a lot of Australorps that are dull finished. I don't keep a bird like that. You want that nice green sheen to them.
You're damn right. Yeah, because if it goes on them, you've got nothing but a black chicken.
Just a dull black chicken.
I learned years ago with a good friend, and God bless him, he's gone now, but Bill Bowman. And I think I took my AVA tests, and I had 43 buff Brahma pullets in the junior show that I had to sort through, and about 95% of them come from Bill. But what he told me to do was take that wing and fold it out and put it up to the light. And what you would see in a lot of the ones that weren't as good is that black was more of a chocolate color. It wasn't black. And that was something he was a SOB on. It had to have that striking black contrast. And that's why he always had good colored, even colored buffs, is when you start getting that watered down chocolate color. That's when you get the splotchy surface color.
Right.
I know it's different from regular Colombian, but it's the same, because then you also have to add the buff in there. And I think that's the fault of most buff Brahmas today, is there's 14 shades of buff, and if you hold one up to the light, you're going to see that black is not solid black. It is a muddled up chocolate color.
Right.
And for them to keep that black in there will also make because I see buffs with horrible hackle and saddle striping, and then we don't even want to go to the wing, because I know when I see that bad hackle and saddle striping, the wing's going to be a mess and the buff's going to bleed all over.
Yep.
So
right.
exactly the same thing. You've got to
Mhm.
watch those little fine points, when, especially in that color pattern, because I don't think it's one of the easiest color patterns to raise. There's lots of intricacies to it, and you can have it one year and it'll be gone the next. It's almost
Yep.
like breeding reds. There's no comfort level. You got to be on it all the time.
But it's, these fine points are just little things that you have to recognize and see, which are big things, a big result. It gives you a big result in the end. So,
And back to the point of going and talking to those breeders, because we
Right.
as judges, we're going to find what's wrong with it. But if I'm not a Colombian breeder, I'm not going to be able to tell you how to breed them. But that
Right.
guy breeds them every day and looks at them every day, like Brian or Bill or somebody like that you can go to. They're going to tell you how to. It's been consistently producing good birds. They
Right.
can tell you them little tips that are going to get you over whatever hump you're on.
Right.
Because you'll definitely be on some humps with those patterns. That's for sure.
Right. Yep, absolutely. And yeah, just by doing that put me over the top. So, and to me, it's like, after talking to Brian, it's like, oh my God, just, those little things. So you do it, you implement it. And like the next year, it's like, holy cow,
Yep.
yeah. So-
And the neat thing about when you said you keep those dark-headed pullets, and you
Right.
get a couple, 3 of those. So for the people that don't understand and they're always wanting to outcross, Gary can keep the families going because he is in fact almost like an outcross within your same family. So if you need something, you're not going to show those, but you've
Right.
got a selection there to bring that and work it back in. And
Back
I
in.
think that's real important if you really want to breed
Right.
and stay, because we've done it in big coachings and we've done it in coaching bantams. You name the color, and Matt's done it in his Chanticleers and whatever else he's got. There's always a pen,
Mm-hmm.
and very rarely, if ever, does anything come out of that pen to show. They're not showbirds.
Nope.
They're
Nope.
birds that they're your ingredients to make your cake,
Right.
right?
Yep.
It's always
So
a
if you have
it's always a
less
learning
breeds,
process.
yes, less breeds and less varieties that get, but the same amount of space, you can get where you need to go quicker if you
Right.
concentrate, because
Mhm.
you've got the space to keep them 4 or 5 birds, or in our case, sometimes I'll have 7 or 8 male birds. I try to keep at least, this year I won't, but at least 4 cockbirds and 4 cockerels. So, and I don't use them all the time, but there's those things that if you see you kind of maybe slipped a little, you don't have to go somewhere else. You put it right back up. If a friend says, hey, do you have? I do. It's not
Right.
here, but you have that at home. And I think that's, if you're going to stay on top or close to the top and keep fighting, you got to have that. You
Right.
have to have that reserve of your own to pull from.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying on
Absolutely.
this, I've actually started a new project last year, and it's something I never had, and I know what a good one looks like because I complain about them all the time. But it's quail, the quail color. So I see some awful colored quails. So now that I have them, I'm thinking, oh my God, I got all kinds of birds here. So after hopefully we get a little fertility this year, quail water malls is my new project, but they are all over the place, and I'm curious to see, because what I'm trying to do is balance some things out with them, and I'm curious to see how that works because that's a color I've never raised, and I don't know if there's one more difficult, but that one's surely tough.
That's a difficult one. Yep. Yep.
But the same things you're talking about, hackle color, lacing and shafting to match up, and the right surface color, and getting all that in one bird. And I got 5 males here, Mike, and there's not 2 of them alike. They're all
they're all
different. And the females are consistent, but the males are definitely not. So we're going to play with that this year and see what pops out of that. And there's another one with record keeping. It's going to be stud matings on single females to see how this batch of chicks with that male, works out and that way. But another project, I guess I probably shouldn't be doing at this age, but it always intrigued me, that color, and I appreciate the ones that raise good ones. And I've judged a bunch of them, but by God, I see a whole bunch of bad colored quail.
Yeah.
Too, so.
Yeah. So,
That's my project.
well, we obviously we have the Colombian rocks. We got it down to 3 breeds now. Matt still has his white Leghorn Bantams, which I show with his work schedule. He can't go to shows too much anymore. So I get to, he goes, Dad, show them, we've got them in the barn, show them. So I show those. But we got down to 3 breeds. It's the black Australorps, the white Leghorn Bantams, and the Colombian rocks. So, and that's enough. That is enough. So
that's in 3 good competitive classes. That
right.
You're not going to go show the only ones at a show with those. There's going to be a pile of white leghorns and a pile of Australorps anymore. So
yeah.
We're
I picked up my new project I got from Don Schroeder, because I always wanted some, and just kind of a whim, was some single comb dark brown leghorn bantam. So I'd never seen any really good ones, and I thought, well, if anybody has them, it'll be Don. Well, he brought me a pair, and I'm so amazed at these birds, because I've had single comb whites, and I've had light browns, and I had rose comb whites, and they're absolutely insane. These dark browns are almost like moderns. They'll come to the cage when I feed them. The male's a little fussy. When you get in there, he's going to come at you. And I thought, well, where do these birds come from? Because the temperament for a leghorn is nothing like anything I've ever had. So as soon as she lays, they're going together, because I want to see what they produce. So, and I always liked the color. I had large dark browns, and they were the same way, very docile. I'd have to kick them out of the way to feed them. And somehow he's gotten that temperament over in the bantams, which, and all the other leghorn bantams I've ever had, I never had that temperament. They were just insane. So to have one that actually I can work with and will show, and not fly up the cage and everything's going to be interesting. And I hope they produce the same. That's one trait I want to keep.
That's what's nice about the Colombians, because their temperament. You walk into a pen, when they're finally on the floor in the spring or summer, God, you're tripping over them. They won't get out of your way. So it is really, and like I tell the 4-H kids, especially the younger ones that are starting to get into it, work with a bantam first. Find a bantam, so you get used to handling the bird. It's not overwhelming for you. And then if you want to gravitate towards a large fowl, you can do that. But you start with a large fowl first, you might be out of the hobby sooner than you think. Or a lot of my kids in 4-H, I mean, we got 250 kids in the project. A lot of them show meat birds and turkeys. Well, you show meat birds, you're going to get totally turned off with the hobby, because you know what they do. All they do is eat and crap, and yep. So yeah, we got our barn. We got 1,000 birds at the fair. Half is turkeys and meat birds, and then the other half is show birds. So we always have a couple that keep moving on. You see them at the other shows, so that's a good thing. So.
And that's good intro to a lot of kids. We got them here in our fair, and I was the superintendent for lots of years and 4-H supervisor for over 20 years. They start there with those, and then they see that bird over in the exhibition pen. I want some of those. Instead of having them for 8 weeks, or turkey maybe 26 weeks, and then they're gone. They get to keep them and do those things. So I think we've gotten a lot of kids into the exhibition part of it through that meat project. I always cuss it when I have to judge it, or a kid with showmanship trying to use a meat bird that they can't hardly hold because it weighs 8 pounds. I always like to see them when they gravitate over to those show birds and move on to that next step, which is what we're trying to do.
That's what we're trying to do. And we got a lot of kids in the show side, the exhibition side, that are now, they breed their own, and we recognize them at the fair. We give them a breeder patch, we give them a numeral, if they're doing it for so many years. Those are the kids that are really into it. And those are the kids you see at Portage, or you see at Ohio, or, because,
and hopefully 10 years from now, you're going to see them, still. That's
yes. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Well, I got into a couple of new things. Well, actually, 2.5. I'd say half because I've been moving in and out of black Wyandotte Bantams 427 times. My wife says, so we're trying that again this year, and I'm already had about enough of those goofy little bastards, but we'll see how that goes. And I've got some single comb white leghorn bantams, and they're the same. My whites are the same as temperament as Matt's dark browns. I've never seen anything like them in white leghorns. Well, yeah, I do. Back when Don Nelson had those, and they were so tame. And these things are, I mean, they're that way. They're laying well. I really like them. I can see where my trouble's going to be with the earlobes. I've already got them yellow, you know.
okay.
And then, and the same thing. And of course, that wasn't enough. So I've got 2 pens of black rose comb bantams, and yeah, we'll just see if I can condition. Besides that, a few Old English again, just for shits and grins, because I like the little bastards, and
Well,
I like to show them about once every 3rd year. Yeah, I mean, it's something else to do. It doesn't take away. I think when you get our age and have done it so long, you know where your bread is buttered, but that doesn't mean you don't have a little bit of time to play with something else. And I think it keeps you fresh.
it does.
In what you're winning with, what you're known for. But those other things, they kind of keep you fresh. And sometimes you'll say, "Oh shit, that'd work over here." I mean, you don't realize how much everything goes together. Or in my case with those earlobes, it's like, well, Mikey, they're breeders. When you start getting here, you're not gonna be able to feed them like you're feeding them now. So,
yeah,
but it's fun.
It's fun. I used to do that too, and now I go to a show, and Julie's parting words to me would be, "Don't bring anything else home." So,
it's always good when you come home with less than you went with. That's when I know I had a good day. Like I'm coming back with empty carriers.
It reminds me when we were kids and go on spring break. The only thing my dad would, because we'd go to Florida somewhere, my dad would say, "Don't ever come home with anything you didn't leave with."
Right.
Okay. I knew what you meant.
But yeah,
so
I mean,
I think it's the same way.
But it gets back to that same thing where you start bringing stuff home because I call it a disease, but then now it's taking up barn space. So yeah, I slap my hand all the time and say, okay, we're just working on these. That's it. So
I have broke myself from waterfowl after, like you said, all you have to do is go out and take care of them in this kind of weather, and that's enough. I think about that. And no, not doing it again.
Mm-hmm. So
I don't have that much heart. I'm not that tough. It's like, no.
Oh, I'm content with going over to Dustin's and just looking at them there, and he can manage them all winter long.
Yep. We've had a number of years with that. That's for sure. Jeez.
Yeah, it's not fun. So
I mean, this morning I added an extra hour on chores, just breaking ice and.
Yep.
So.
Well, that's me. I got the ice all broke and thought, well, shit, it's time to go in.
Right.
So I come in and thought, well, I'll go back out. So
mine are spoiled. They're heated, and I still don't want to go out there. So it's like got to get to the barn first before I get to
that
work.
75 foot can be a bitch, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yes. I think I want to wait till after the podcast to go do my chores.
Yeah. Well, so
Gary, what's up next? What's up next for you? Are you home now for a while, or you got something cooking to go show again, or go judge again? Or
I'll be honest with you, the fall was pretty brutal.
Yes.
I think well, with a couple of shows that I did show, I mean, I started judging the end of October and didn't finish until last weekend, so it was every weekend. And, Julie stayed, she went to a couple of them, especially when we went south. So then you rely on, hopefully you have a boy home for the weekend that can do chores, or she was doing chores for a number of those weekends. But yeah, so the end of October till last weekend, I finally, okay, we're done. But I enjoy it. I say yes and I enjoy it. But, when you get to the end, it's like, yeah, okay, I need a break. But it starts all back up again in April. I go down to Spencer, Indiana, for that Spencer show. I'll be down there. And then I go out to Sedalia and do that show in the spring. Got a couple county fairs lined up already. And I'm doing Minnesota, the Hutchinson show. I got lined up again. Going up to Canada to John Beamer and Paul Monteith's show up there. I'll be judging that. That's going to be fun. I've never been out of the country. So
you'll like it. It's a great experience. Some really good breeders, and if you can't have a good time with that crew, you're helpless.
I'm helpless. Helpless is what you are. Paul and I judged it. Paul and I judged a couple of shows already together. Last weekend we were down in Houston at that Klein show, and we had a great time. Brian Shelton was there and Diane Darr. We all had a good time. Lots of stories. But no, I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, I'm looking forward. We're going to drive. We're not going to fly. So, Paul said it's only like 8 hours, and yeah, he was right. It's only 8 hours from my house.
It's not bad. It's not bad. So, we drove it. We've drove it every time. From here, I can go two different ways. We can go up and cross, and then go across Canada, or we can drive up the lake basically and go across in Buffalo. And I like that way.
Border crossing experience to know that if you're going to Canada, go through Buffalo, not Detroit.
Yeah. So basically, if I go through Buffalo, it adds another hour. So Paul said, just go right through Michigan, go northeast, and then you can cross there, and it shaves off an hour. And then
Port Huron
must be. I haven't looked at it.
That's a good crossing too. Port Huron is. I'm just not a fan of Detroit. I mean, they're going to have the new bridge is supposed to be open, and there'll be two bridges going across, maybe. But I could just say that it's much more pleasant. It's never real pleasant coming back's a breeze, but going over Buffalo or Port Huron are they're pretty good.
They're pretty good. Okay.
Yeah. So
and Paul's right there.
You're on your own.
Paul's right there at Port Huron too, so he lives in Sarnia on the other side. So that's all
right.
I went both ways.
Yeah, it's probably where he crosses then. So, but
what about we're wrapping up here, Gary? What about the future of the hobby? And you've been in it a long time, so you've seen it from back in the days of Harry and in the Hallback Poultry Farm to now. How do you think we're doing?
I'm encouraged. I mean, I would say 10 years ago I would be a little more nervous, but I think we got a good group of kids coming up, now. I see it in Wisconsin, and even the shows that I've judged, I mean, good junior turnout. And it seems like they want to get involved. I got a lot of kids that are, either clerking for me or clerking for others, that are at that where they're interested in that. I know I got a couple kids here in Wisconsin, like I keep mentioning Hannah. Now she's clerking, and both girls now have Riley. They have their county fair license, so they can judge at a county fair level. And let's see where it takes. But I mean, there's a lot of kids. Nadia Konesko here in Wisconsin. She's been clerking a lot. I don't know if she has her county fair license yet, but you see these kids at these shows that you go to, and they're clerking for judges, and they're in the open show now too. They aged out of the junior show, and now they're in the open show. So I'm encouraged. I am.
That's a good deal. When I got back from Columbus, I don't ever get to look at the list till I get home. And I told Mike, I said, I used to know everybody on that list for all the 50 years I've been going down there. I bet there wasn't a third of them on there I knew. So we got so many new people coming in.
Right.
They're starved for advice, and in this day and age, we've got a little better way of getting it to them with the internet and all that stuff. So hopefully, that's my goal, anyways, is that we're doing those things that help encourage those people to stay around a while.
Right. Well, it's like in Bloomington a couple of weeks back, I wasn't judging, but I had a lot of kids come up to me, older kids, that had probably already aged out, but just, they're asking you questions. They said, well, can you come over here and look at my bird? And, these are the ones that are in their late teenage years or early 20s that are in the open show now. And, they're starving for advice. And I'm encouraged that they're asking for that too, because there's a lot of kids that they don't want to walk up to an old timer like us now and ask questions. I mean, we're like a walking encyclopedia, all of us are. And I'm always happy to tell these kids what I know and what they should do or not do, or, and they just seemed, just in the past couple of years, they just seem to just soak all that in. They're all ears, and they don't talk over you. A lot of kids, some may say, well, I know it all, I don't need to know anything else. But the kids that I've talked to, I mean, they are just all ears, and you can just tell they're soaking it all in, and they're asking more questions.
Right.
They're not telling you, well,
Right.
they're
And
listening.
I try to tell myself, I try to take that time, and even if it's a 60-year-old exhibitor, and I've had quite a few of those the last several shows, but we'll go over there and look, and I'll tell them what I think. And if I don't think that I know how to do what they want to do, I'll try to point them to that guy that will help
Right.
them, or lady that will help
Right.
them. So I think that helps. And I think that encourages them to stick around a little bit, but you're right. They got to have that initiative to go ask. In the days of one day in and out, hurry up shows, it's
Mhm.
nice that you get somebody that wants to take that time and, not be in a hurry to get out of there to go to learn something, or
Right.
go hear what you got to say. So that's always a good sign, I think.
Well, and even
And Gary,
Yeah.
they're going to ask you more now because you've been on here,
I'm,
and they can take what they've heard here. And I think it's a great thing. It gets stopped a hell of a lot more, but
Yeah.
it's also very satisfying when they say, "Hey, I saw you. Listen to that show all the way to wherever they're going." Like a psych thing as they're going. A bunch of them coming up from the south, going to Columbus. They listen to it on Spotify, and it just kind of adds to the, we're going to see everybody.
yeah.
Everybody I've heard from, everybody that's on the show, they're going to be there, and
Right.
I think it helps. I hope it does. Anyway.
Well, it's satisfying to me when you got a kid come up to you, like say last year, you tell them what they need to do, and then they come up to you the following year and say, "Hey, look at my birds,"
Yes.
or they might be on Champion Road now, and they'll come up to you and they're all excited. It's like, yes, so you've connected with that person.
Yep.
And like you said, Mike, um, we're not going to initiate it probably, but if they come up, I'm more than happy to tell them everything I know, because I didn't have that when I was a kid. I didn't, like I said in the introduction, I didn't know a thing. I didn't have a leader in 4-H. I knew nothing until Harry finally came up to me and said, "Okay, you need some help here." It's like, yeah. So, but yeah, and that's why I've been a 4-H leader for all these years, because I want to give back to the youth, because that's our future,
Exactly.
And
One thing I will say about Harry, and I knew him my whole time in the hobby, was he always took that time for you, and he never made you feel stupid.
no,
Because
never
the
did.
Lord knows we wanted to do a lot of stupid shit back in the day. He
Right.
would always go find that bird I needed, and it might be a few months before I got it, but he was always very supportive. And then he would come up and ask, and he never forgot, "How you doing with that?" well, Harry, that didn't work. Now I'm on to this. Well, then he'd
Right.
go get that bird. So he always,
Right.
and that's why I try to do it, I guess, because those guys took that time and seen some value in spending the time with you. And Mike and I see all these little kids in there. Well, we see on the podcast, will you come do this or that? Yeah, we will. We'll come do it. And
Yeah.
I enjoy that because number one, then it lets us know somebody's actually listening to it.
Right. Well,
And,
like you said, Matt, what the questions you get on their birds, with us going around the whole country now judging, we can say, reach out to this person, this so-and-so, and he might be able to help you with breeding stock or hatching eggs or something like that to get you to that next level,
I
Yep.
agree.
Yeah, and they do that. I mean, but no, I'm encouraged. I think the hobby is, we're all board members of the ABA. I think our membership is up, right?
Yes,
I
we're
do,
doing
yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
I think we're at 2,400. So, it's
Right.
the all-time highs for that. And this board, I can never say enough. You was on the standard committee. So we got to go through all that deal. Mike and I were kind of like on the side advising you guys, but I think that whole project was the best one I've ever seen. I've been on a lot of them. And we got that done. We put out probably the best standard I think the ABA's ever had. It's been well received. Lord knows we're about out, I think. And keeping it going. There comes a time when I don't want to step aside and let everybody else step in here and see what they can do, because I think new ideas are always good, and you've seen that since you've been on the board.
Right.
This board that we've had for the last couple of years has worked together very well, getting what needed to be done. And it didn't always go every way we all wanted it, but we compromised, we got it done, and we move on. And I think we've been very good about that on our side. So,
Well, being on
I am
that
proud of that.
Yeah, being on that standard committee, I mean, working with Paul and John, I mean, that was the easiest thing. It's I served on a lot of committees in that, and there's always, bickering back and forth, and it was probably the easiest thing I've ever been on. So
Yep. That's because we tried to do what's right for the fancy, not
Right.
what's right for us. And somebody asked me a question the other day. I forget who it is. It was something. And I said, I have no clue, but I'll get you the idea, I think. And they said, well, don't you know you're the president? I said, that's why we have a board.
right,
Yep.
That's why we have other people. I said, it's the same as anything. Just because you're running it, in this case, you delegate, people are in there you trust, you just back them, and away you move forward. The
yep,
whole thing is to keep moving forward, because there is no standing still. You're going backwards if
Right.
you're standing still. And I think this board, even though some of us have difference of opinion, the opinions are put out to where we can all relate and say, oh, hell, I never thought of it that way. It's a good thing. It's a
Right.
very good thing.
When you start to, and we're all business people, I mean, even when you start to micromanage people, that's when you get in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't work. And I run my poultry committee the same way. When you have 1,000 bird county fair show, I cannot do that by myself.
No.
Everybody has a role in order to get that, accomplished and go smoothly in 5 days. If I start to micromanage that, I'm not going to have a committee.
No, you can't. You have to empower,
Mhm.
train, and trust,
Right.
because a lot of shows are failing because nobody's there, but a lot of people that try to be there, they don't want there. Well, I'll tell
Right.
you what, you're dying.
You're dying then. Yep.
You have to, new ideas, we've never done it this way before. Well, maybe we've done it wrong the whole time.
Right.
I mean, you can't be afraid of progress, or you're going backwards.
You're going
Pretty
backwards.
soon, there's
I will-
nothing there.
I will
Yeah.
give an update. I talked to Cheryl Barnaba at the Congress this week, and we've been calling out for somebody to get us a show program that actually works for everybody.
Oh, that's right.
And they're doing a new one up there this year, and the fellow's supposed to come on as soon as he gets with me. He's from the West Coast, but they have a whole new program. And it kind of, from the way she talked, it's doing everything that I wanted it to do. It's doing the ABA show reports. It's doing coop cards right. It's doing judging sheets right. It's doing trios right. It's calculating displays. It's doing a whole lot of stuff. And they're going to test it at the Congress. And so far, Cheryl says, as far as the entry side of it, it's fantastic. They're doing online entries, confirmations. It's doing like some of the things the rabbit shows do. If you want to put the data back in, it will email you your show results. It will email you a list of the champions when the show's over. So it's a lot of things. I got big hopes for this. And anybody going to the Congress, check this program out and give us some feedback, because I'm not going to be able to get up there this year. But hopefully this is that answer we wanted, because we wanted to have a show management program that the organizations can recommend to the show secretaries that, hey, this is going to make your job easier. And, regardless of whatever cost it is, it's going to cut your time down and all that. Being an old show secretary, that can get mind boggling when you, like you say, if you can't delegate a lot of it off, you're doing it all yourself. So hopefully we can computerize this and this thing works. So I'm anxious to see what that looks like.
That's good. Yep. So,
well, we've been on here an hour and a half, gentlemen.
Well, I hope I answered the questions on the Colombians. So,
you guys need to bookmark this, because that what he told you is golden if you've ever raised Colombians, because you can struggle for a long time and not realize what Brian told you, and you applied it yourself, so you've seen it work.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. So, but
good deal.
No,
thank you.
I appreciate
you. Yeah, Merry
Continue
Christmas.
success.
Yes.
Merry Christmas. Get your damn furnace fixed.
Yes, it's cold. I can tell you that. So, a brand new furnace and it doesn't work. So, yeah. But yeah, Merry Christmas, you guys. Happy holidays. I think Matt and I will have birthdays like back to back here at the end of the month.
Pretty quick. Mike just had his, so we're the same age for about 30 days or 20 days.
Yep. And I think
I'm gonna quit having them.
Well,
to that point.
Once I hit 60, I start counting backwards. So I'm going to be 58 this year.
There you go.
Yeah. So
it's bad when I'm closer to the 70 than I am to 60. I know that.
Yeah.
What a ride,
but good
boys.
thing is we're all still topside. That's the main thing.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So, and we're still enjoying what we love. So
there you go. I ain't giving it up yet. So
nope, not yet. So
remember, everybody, like, subscribe, and share.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for having me on. So
all right.
Thank you.
All right.